Hi friends, this is the math lesson for second grade. This is Unit 5, Lesson 4. On Friday, we learned how to make picture graphs. I really like picture graphs because I think they're cute, first of all, because you get to use some little symbol or picture in your graph. And secondly, they're really easy to read and look at the data. So today we are going to practice using some picture graphs to answer some questions. We will be answering comparison questions. So you will see the words more and fewer. Now, don't worry, you don't have to do comparison bars because we get to use our picture graph to help us answer the questions. So in our first two questions today, we have two parts to do. First, we have to figure out a number to put in this box. And secondly, we have to decide if it's the word more or fewer. We're not even really we're answering a question, but the answer to our question is in a sentence. So really, we're just making a comparison sentence. So before we look at sentence number 1, let's take a look at our picture graph. We know that the title is Number of Balloons. I know that I have 3 people, Carla, Peter, and Hannah, and that each one of these balloons stands for one balloon, right? So I know that Carla has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you would like to write a 7 right there, that's totally fine. I know that Peter has 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that Hannah has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So by just looking at our graph, we know that Carla has the most, Peter has the fewest, and Hannah has kind of what's in the middle. So let's take a look at our first comparison sentence. It says, Carla has blank, more or fewer balloons than Peter. Now, when I solve these problems, I like to ignore the box. And I like to circle more or fewer first. So if I ignore the box, it would say, Carla has more or fewer balloons than Peter. Well, let's look at our graph. We have Carla and Peter. Who has more? Carla does. So here, we're going to circle more. So we could just leave the sentence as this. Carla has more balloons than Peter. That's true. Now what we need to do is we need to figure out how many more balloons does she have than Peter? Well, I know that if I look at Carla and Peter, that they line up to here. So they have the same amount, same amount, same amount, same amount until they get here. Then I can see that Carla has 1, 2, 3 more balloons than Peter. So I'm going to write my 3 in there. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says, Hannah has blank, more or fewer balloons than Carla. Let's ignore the box again. Hannah has more or fewer balloons than Carla. Here's Hannah. Here's Carla. You decide. Does Hannah have more or does Hannah have fewer balloons? Hannah has fewer balloons. See, her balloons are less than Carla's. Now, how many fewer? Well, let's draw our line right there. They match up to right there. And then we know that Carla has 2 more. So we're missing 1, 2 balloons right there. So Hannah has 2 fewer balloons than Carla. All right, let's take a look at numbers 3 and 4. We have a new picture graph. So this picture graph is leaves collected. We have 3 people. We have Amari, Sam, and Marco. Amari has 1, 2, 3, 4 leaves. Sam has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 leaves. And Marco has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaves. Okay, so we know that Sam has the most, then Marco, then Amari. Amari has the fewest. So these questions are a little bit different. This time we're not circling more or fewer like we did above. Now we are right here. So it says, Amari needs blank more leaves to have as many as Sam. So here's Amari, here's Sam. This is where they match up, right? So the question is, how many more does Amari need to equal what Sam has? Why don't you take a minute and look at that? Okay, so Amari has 4, and we need to get to 8. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So Amari needs 4. Now let's look at number 4. It says, if Sam gives away blank leaves, he will have the same amount as Marco. So let's take a look at Sam and Marco. We know that they line up right here. This is where they have the same amount. So how many does Sam have to cross out to get the same as Marco? Take a minute and figure that out. How many does Sam need to cross out to have the same as Marco? So if we cross out 1 and 2, then he will have the same as Marco. So Sam is getting rid of 2 leaves to have the same as Marco. All right, let's keep on going. We have another picture graph, but this time it's asking us some questions. So we're not going to be doing those comparison statements again. We are going to be answering the questions. So I always like to look at my graph first and make sure I understand what's going on. So my graph is called apples bought. We have red, green, and yellow. There were 4 red apples, 2 green apples, and 2 yellow apples. So our first question is, how many apples did Mrs. Reed buy all together? So you can either do a math equation or you can use your picture graph and count up the total number of apples. So take a minute and do that now. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 total apples. And we can use our how many trick to figure out our label, the word right after how many. All right, number 6, it says there are 2 green apples, 1 yellow apple, and 1 red apple in the bowl. The rest are in Mrs. Reed's bag. How many apples are in her bag? If you are feeling like a little bit of a challenge, I encourage you to pause the video and try and solve this one on your own. If you are not ready for a challenge, which is totally fine, let's solve it together. So we know that she bought all of these apples. Some are in the bowl, some are in her bag. We know how many are in the bowl. So let's cross out what are in the actual bowl. So it says 2 green apples, so I'm going to cross off. That's why I love graphs, because you can cross things off, you can add things. It makes it really simple to see what's going on. 1 yellow apple and 1 red apple. So we crossed off all the ones that are in the bag. If you want to try and finish this problem on your own, please do it. So let's count and see how many apples are in her bag. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 apples. Again, we can use our how many trick to figure out our label, but you guys know that we're dealing with apples, so it is apples that is our label. All right. If you're feeling brave and you want to try number 7 and 8 on your own, these are the last 2 questions that we are going to do. Feel free to pause the video and then check back with me when you are done. So for our graphs, it's talking about books that 4 children read. We have Pablo, Janice, Helen, and Ray. Pablo read 3 books. Janice read 2 books. Helen read 1 book. And Ray read 4 books. So number 7 looks a little different. Number 7 says 2 children read 6 books altogether. Who are the 2 children? So if we were to add the numbers of 2 of the children, they would equal 6. So let's see. Any ideas? Well, I know Helen read 1, and I know 1 plus 5 is 6. So there's no one that read 5. So Helen is out. Maybe I'll just put a little X through her name. So now we have Pablo with 3, Janice with 2, and Ray with 4. Take a minute and think about who do you think read 6 total? I know that Ray has 4, and then I can count up 2 more, 5 and 6. So our answer for number 7 would be Ray and Janice. You can obviously switch those as long as you have 1 on each line. That would be good. All right. Question 8. 2 of the books the children read are about cars, and 2 books are about trains. The rest of the books are about animals. How many books are about animals? So this is kind of similar to the question with Mrs. Reed's apples that are in the bowl or the bag. So 2 of them are about cars. So let's choose 2 and cross them out. I'm going to cross out 2 of Ray's. Let's just say those are the cars. And then we know 2 of the books are about trains. So I'm going to cross out the other 2 of Ray's. You can cross out any 4 books as long as you cross out 4. Now we know that of the books that are left, those are all the ones about animals. So what do we have to do? We need to add up the books that are left. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 books about animals. And your label is just books. You could say animal books, but you don't need to. It is just books. All right, my friends, that is it for today's lesson. I hope you are enjoying using picture graphs. Tomorrow, you'll be taking a quiz on picture graphs, and then we will move into bar graphs. That's it for today. We'll see you later, friends.